Good evening. Hello, good evening. Nandakumar here. I've logged in 50 to 60 seconds early. I hope all of you are fine. I understand Ahmedabad, like Chennai, is one of those places which is rather badly affected by COVID-19. I'm sure all of us will work together to get out of it as early as possible. I wish that this ends. So it's 5, so we'll start. My name is Nandakumar. I'm an educator based in Chennai. The topic for the day is Indian K-12 sector. Is it time to churn for better outcomes? It's a topic with wide-ranging implications. Uh, it's it's a topic that I've suggested myself, so I'm guilty of taking up something which is quite. It's one of those cases of biting more than what you can chew. But let's hope that we end up doing enough justice to the topic. It has various facets to it. I'll try touching upon certain aspects of it. In the course of the next 60 minutes, of which 45 minutes uh, will be my presentation. Uh, we will leave ourselves 15 minutes for answering questions that you raise. Uh, During the 45 minutes, next 45 minutes, whatever I say, these are my opinions. These do not reflect the opinions of the host, which is Kalorex Foundation. Okay. Why should we take up for discussion something like the K-12 system? Well, any country decides on certain goals that it wants to achieve. These can be social, economic, historical, or civilization. And to reach those goals, the most important platform on which it should build is basic education. Uh, Across the world, it is, some countries have 16 years, some countries have 17 years. If you include the pre-KG and the pre-KG, which has now become quite popular, it's about 15 years of schooling. So what gets passed on to the majority of the population during these 15 years, it does become important to set national aspirations and to achieve national aspirations. So from that perspective, a discussion on K-12 sector, what it should achieve, what we should do, becomes important. That's why we are taking this up for discussion. Now, let's get into the topic. One of the major complaints I have against the system is it's it was always highly theoretical. There have been attempts to tinker with it every bit now and then, but we have still largely remained a very, very theoretical. We have maintained a theoretical approach to our education, surprisingly, even primary and kindergarten education. Now, you normally confront a question. Despite your so-called criticism of theoretical system, people have gone abroad, done well. They're sitting in some of the top positions in governments, judiciary, MNCs all over the world. So what's wrong with the system? But we should remember that those who have gone abroad, done well, or have done well within India, form a microcosm. It's less than 1,000th of 1% who have risen to top heights. Whereas a society's problem gets solved when a larger segment gets good education. So let's not take those exceptions, look at them, and keep saying, yes, we have done well, and there must be something right about a highly theoretical approach. Uh, Please note that I'm not against theoretical approach. I'm talking about overemphasis on theoretical approach, and too much of introduction of theory at too early a stage. We, if you look at it closely, we can go back to the history of where all this started. Of course, it's 1835. We all keep talking about Babington Macaulay, but I mean, he threw out a system and brought it in. We'll come to it a bit later during the talk. But we inherited something in 1947 when we managed to spend about 3 years after independence to sit down and draft a constitution which will guide the republic. Why not spend? Why wasn't an equal amount of energy spent on having a team of elders sitting together and developing an education model, drawing both from our traditional systems and whatever was good from the Macaulayan system? I mean, we cannot foul mouth Macaulay 100%. There is an introduction of a few things, and the modern schooling system does have its advantages because we have to move ahead with times. But then was enough time spent on thinking about why was the old system totally discarded? It should have been done in 1947, which we did not. There have been multiple commissions of commissions which went about doing those education policies. There's a lot of good noble attempt, but most of these have ended up tinkering with some peripherals, very rarely the core. So my first complaint, my first peeve is that the country in the last 80 plus years, last 70 plus years, has not bothered to sit and think and develop a system of its own. We've been making policies, but the broader framework has remained the same that was forced on us. It was forced on us because we were ruled by somebody else. We have stuck to the same framework and refused to think beyond. Because we perhaps continue to think that quite a lot of what was passed on to us as modern school, this English medium education, predominantly English medium education, uh, is going to be beneficial. That's the only way we can march into the new modern world. I have serious question about this medium of instruction, which again we'll talk later. When I talked about the bad idea of discarding whatever was old, I have a few things to say. In the last 10 or 15 years, we do have a lot of material, and these are very authentic, evidence based material that's available, which talks about how our schooling system was fantastic. It included all sections of the community. It had both men and women. There was equal opportunity given to women. All this is very well recorded in a book titled "The Beautiful Tree" by Dharampal. I repeat, "Beautiful Tree" by Dharampal. All those interested in education and trying to know what was, I'm talking about the old Gurukula system, which is not well recorded, though we do know that it worked well. I'm talking about what was present in late 18th century, early 19th century. So by discarding whatever it is old, what we've done is we have managed to follow a system which does not make anybody proud about his or her own country. This, despite the fact that in the last 20 or 30 years, a lot of researches have been done, a lot of books have come, uh, and these are well authenticated. It's accepted worldwide, but we do not seem to have incorporated them. The questionable Aryan invasion theory continues to be given out as a fact when it is not. Even something more serious like Angus Madison's research that at the start of 2000 years ago, uh, India produced contributed to 31 to 32% of the world's GDP. Uh, it's a much acclaimed and much accepted report. I don't find that research coming into Indian education system. So we continue to uh, dole out for political reasons or because people don't want to write something controversial. We continue to dole out something that always puts at ourselves as a civilization, as a nation, it pitching us at a lower level. Uh, One is Angus Madison. There is a lot of research. This is one country which had 7,000 years of uninterrupted and continuous civilization. And we don't talk about it. There is some passing reference to Harappan civilization in sixth standard social studies. There again, I have a bit of a complaint. If you take sixth, seventh, and eighth standard social studies, we have 6000 BCE to almost 1000 BCE covered. That's about 7 millennia covered in grade 6, right from hunter gatherer, agriculture, early days of civilization, etc. etc. Seventh, you do about 600 years, 1000 AD to 1800 AD. And in eighth, you do about 200 years. Now, this is the very reverse of what we should be doing. One is it is not proportionate. You study 7 millennia at age 11 or 12 for grade 6. The next millennia, read it over 2 years. I'm not questioning the history part of it. I'm not talking about this overemphasis on Mughal rule and on the British rule. Then I'll be termed something else. What I'm trying to tell you is uh, the stories about kings, queens, who succeeded whom, can always be taught at a younger age. To understand civilization, how people lived, how was sanitation, how from hunter gatherer you became something else, why was river civilization became a compulsion for early man. These are things that are of scientific interest that promote curiosity. Now, that should come at a time when the intelligence and the intellect of a child is reasonably grown. What should be passed on as a story, as data, as information, can be done early. So we're not only cramming too many things at too short a time, but I would question the sequence. The, the chronological sequence here should not matter. What should matter is the the intellectual ability of the child to understand. I mean, all of you must have heard of Noval Harris, the famous historian who's been writing about Homo sapiens, the early man, and all that. To read all that, you have to be a 30 or a 40-year-old. I mean, to understand early civilization and how Homo sapiens, draw out the earlier races, etc. So we have done some serious errors in developing our syllabus. Uh, Fine, we need not just criticize. I know we have done well. One area where we have done well is critical thinking. Uh, some aspects of logic and analytical thinking we have done well. Okay. Uh, there is the thought process. We divided into various things, and critical thinking is one aspect of it. Give me a set of data. I know how to analyze it, how to uh, get it into various aspects of it, uh, and give solutions. Uh, if the problem is mentioned, I have data, and then I create a solution. We are good at critical thinking. But what India needs is creative thinking and what we call as generative thinking. And we failed because the approach is so structured even today that uh, we overdo physical sciences and mathematics. I'm not saying avoid them, we overdo. Uh, if you compare it with few other systems of education across the world, we seem to be doing too much of mechanism of reactions, too much of electromagnetism, too much of calculus and matrices at too early an age, uh, whereas certain other aspects of basic education have been diluted and watered down. Uh, I respect all subjects. I'm a BSc chemistry graduate myself, so I'm not against physical sciences. But there is something called a special interest. Somebody who wants to specialize in something can always pick up those as he goes on. The the objective of K K-12 education is to give every human being some level of confidence, some level of self-respect, some level of intelligence on which he can stand, seek a profession or interest or hobby for himself. I repeat, not just a profession. It's not. It need not be always job. Can be a hobby or an interest. So the second point is too much of critical thinking, not much of generative and creative thinking. We normally, for example, a good education system should give you the skills to solve problems that are local and at the next stage problems that are national. After all these years, we are still struggling with issues of rural proper, rural poverty and urban sanitation. And our education system has not passed on the necessary skills for me to solve them. Uh, so we continue to fare poorly when it comes to these two, urban health and rural poverty. I don't want to get into data about how other countries are doing. Obviously, a village in a developed economy is doing much better than our villages when it comes to certain basic resources. And the present pandemic has indicated to us how the urban health structure has crumbled. I rest my point there. So, uh, each country, this is precisely why every country should develop an education system that passes on the skills to solve its problems. The Those who are intellectually more endowed, those who are specializing in things, can go on and solve universal problems. Launching rockets, solving financial issues in the bond market, or treasury exchanges, or international money exchange, or making microchips. I mean, There are a lot of other things that the world needs. We need everything. We don't want to, get away from all that. But we need more people to solve local and national problems. A percentage of them will grow up to become world citizens and solve universal problems. As one of my favorite thinkers, Edward de Bono, says, the world needs a more number of plumbers, carpenters, and electricians than Einsteins. The world does need Einsteins and Newtons. That's right, but uh, in a city of 80 lakhs, I need more carpenters and plumbers than Einsteins. So the balance has to be maintained. Uh, Coming back to the major criticism that we face, that India is putting kids into school a bit too early. I don't buy that theory. Each country has its own thing. For a few years, we were talking about Russian schools that start at 7, and off late there is this fancy flights to Finland, and people go to Finland. Once it was NASA, everybody landed at NASA. Every school was arranging tours. Now it's Finland, and there's an attempt to study the Finland system, copy the Finland system. I'm sure it has a lot of good things to it. But we should understand the local situation. It's important. Like I keep saying, we should develop things that suit us, not just suit. We should develop systems that we need. I'm talking about this in the context of starting schools early. Once, I belong to a generation where there was no KG. I straight away got admitted into grade one. 5 or 6 years later, one or two of my younger brothers started doing KG. I don't know whether they gained or I lost, or the reverse. We don't. But in today's context, I'm a strong votary of good pre-primary and pre-KG education. The national education policy is talking about it. They want a 3-year pre-primary program. It is talking about a 5+3+3+4 system. Why? Because we have more of working parents, and even the educated parent of today, assuming that one of them isn't working, which is a bad assumption, most of them work. Assuming that one of them is not working, the person does not have the necessary aptitude, attitude, or the resources to teach the children. And one of the major attribute is patience. So we have we have to structure a system that accounts for poor parenting, which we have not. As of date, as we talk to now, KG is not part of the formal system. Most of the private schools, most of the listeners here are practitioners or customers and clients of private school, but the world, in the larger world, 79% of the students in India today still go to government and government-aided schools. Some of them go to Anganwadi before going to grade one, but not many in India go to pre-primary classes. And there starts the inequality. All of them end up writing the same grade 10 state board or CBSE examination. And you start with a lag. And this lag is a 2-year or a 3-year lag. And it's very, very difficult to catch up. Intellectually, I know it's possible to catch up, but emotionally, psychologically, when you're in a peer group, it's difficult. So I am a big votary of this new age pre-primary, pre-KG education, because we have to accept, though I may be offending a few listeners here by saying it, we have to accept that we are in an era of poor parenting. All of us are selfish. We do, after our work, we do want to take care of our interest, our leisure, our part, our entertainment, our diversions, etc. And we don't have time for children. I mean, how many homes have a good private library? There is no evidence of Indian parents reading stories. I'm sure some do, but it must be less than 1 or 2%. Reading stories to their children from a book, or allowing children to access books at home. So KG is one aspect of it. When I criticize some of the systems, people keep talking about the giant strides that schools have made in digital learning, digital stuff. And in the last 6 to 8 weeks, I keep hearing about this rather more frequently, that digital classrooms have come of age and Indians are doing well, etc., etc. I'm not a big buyer of this theory. We've been using IT, digital technology, for quite some time now in some of the more well-endowed schools, and it will continue. More of government and government-aided schools and schools which are of a lower fee, which are in the 2 and 3rd tier of the independent schools, will also start using them. Technology has become cheaper, but we should understand that digital technology is just one more tool. It is an important tool, it's a vital tool. It gives you tremendous opportunities to learn and see things and observe and access. But I don't think I keep talking, I keep hearing people talking about the new normal and how the brick and mortar system will go off, the schooling will undergo a big change. I don't find that happening. I hope it doesn't happen. Teaching and online classes should not be confused with online education. Online education is a much more complex, serious human interface issue compared to online classes. Online classes have a limited role. The pandemic has obliged us to do certain things, which is fair enough, so that things don't get rusty. To that extent, it is fine. I'm not going gaga over this. So my next criticism is about overindulgence in new toys. Uh, we all go for fashion, so something new, something the man next door tells me, or somebody who's traveled to a couple of countries comes back and says this is interesting. We grab without applying our mind to it. Uh, so I'm I'm against this fashionable talk of delayed schooling. I believe in early schooling, but with better teachers. And I am for calibrated use of digital technology. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for a lot of digital use in class, but it has to be calibrated and it has to be graded. Otherwise, the ophthalmologists of future will have a great time. Most of our kids are sitting in front of screens, uh, and by putting a lot of things ready-made in front of them, we are taking away the powers of natural curiosity, natural observation, which is a very, very serious thing. Now let me get back to something that I started at the half an hour ago. Uh, one more thing that we have to churn and seriously look at is the medium of instruction. Researchers have proven that mother tongue education, especially for teaching of mathematics and sciences, uh, is more advisable. But we seem to be madly driven. There is almost a hypocritical overindulgence in in learning English and English medium instruction, despite the sordid fact that we don't have too many good English teachers in this country. We should all understand that English is a foreign language for us. I'm talking to you in English, but as I talk, I don't know how good is my language, how good is your comprehension. I'm sorry to say this, but this is, let's face it, uh, we use English the way we want. We pass off as reasonably good speakers of English, but uh, learning and teaching in mother tongue has extraordinary advantages. We should be able to teach our children better science, better mathematics, because I've come across, I mean, I do visit a lot of schools, not just the independent private schools. I also go to a few other schools as a consultant. I find excellent teachers of maths and science. They come out with some extraordinary handmade tools. But just because they are not expressive in English, and this school is an English medium school, they end up doing things which are stupid, which are wrong. I've done my schooling in Tamil medium myself. Those were days of 11 years of schooling plus 1 year of pre-university. We'll do 11 years of schooling in, we used to do 11 years of schooling in Tamil medium. And overnight, we were in a 1 year PUC course, pre-university course, which is fully in English. We managed. So I would seriously pitch in for a rethink on this overemphasis on English. English is a must. We cannot get back on it. The amount of resources that we have in that language is extraordinary. It's a wonderful language. I'm a great lover of the language. But we are talking about educating 100 million, I mean, some 22 crore children in this country. And from that perspective, I think we'll have to rethink. I mean, why not bilingual education? I mean, when I studied, science and maths was taught through my mother tongue, which is Tamil, but within parentheses, within brackets, we would be given English terms. So when we landed in this 1 year pre-university course, we were able to connect. We are taught English as a subject, but we were able to understand terminologies. Most Indians will end up being bilinguals or trilinguals. We don't have a choice. Most of you are. I mean, most of you may be Gujaratis listening to it, but you speak English, you understand Hindi, you can converse in Hindi. So we will end up being that. But the skills of logic and analytics, which is passed on to you by through studies of maths and science, are very important to life, are integral to happy and intelligent living, and that is better done in mother tongue. This is uh, one more appeal to the powers that be. I have a feeling this happened because of a overfeed of new private schools, and private schools decided that they would go the English medium route to uh, to push their to grow. And I wish and hope promoters of private schools take up mother tongue education and still run excellent schools. You can run excellent schools with mother tongue. This is a serious issue because we just don't have enough teachers of good English. Uh, Teaching of English as a foreign language has failed in this country. We also make this mistake of mistaking fluency in English for intelligence and intellect, which is a very serious issue. Whether it is at the level of political debate or journalism or TV channels, we think the one who talks smooth, I mean, one who talks fluently is making, is more intelligent, which is not the case. I think we have put this language, which is just an instrument of one culture, on a pedestal. I think we should come out of it. We all know that the process of thought doesn't require a language, uh, observation, inference, or inbuilt skills. It is the expression of thought that needs the language, and that can be in any language: Spanish, Japanese, French, whatever. This doesn't mean the planners have done a bad job. I have, as a senior educator, I've been reading successive policy documents. Uh, you should understand that they have to do plans for a country of 140 crores, of whom at least 20 to 25 crores are of a schoolable age, uh, and some in metros, some in sub-metros, some in remote villages, and there is a heterogeneous teaching resource community, heterogeneous community of teaching resources. So they have to keep all this in mind, but keeping all that in mind, they've done a good job. But we as private schools sometimes do a lot of mistakes. We have to understand that. Uh, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the CBSE schooling system. The CBSE Board of Education for grade 11 and 12 just tells you do X number of subjects with one or two caveats. You have to do language, you have to do this. It doesn't give you a set of subjects. It doesn't say that you have to do maths, physics, chemistry, or accountancy, economics, mathematics. It doesn't say that at all. But the man in the street, because of schools, thinks that CBSE has this first group, second group, third group, humanities group, whatever group, which is very, very contrary to the truth. It is wrong. So who should be blamed? It is it is us principals like me, because we find it convenient for timetabling and teacher resource reasons to say that you stick to maths, physics, chemistry, computer science, physics, chemistry, biology with this, accountancy, economics, commerce with this. It's our mistake. So you do have a situation here which is quite ironical. The big planner, the government or the government agency, tries to introduce something very modern. Baya, you just go do whatever subjects you like as long as you have one language, whatever it is, and enjoy your life. Do something for your future course. Do one or two courses that you really like. But me as a private player, I have corrupted the system by saying you want to join the school, you have to do four subjects, of which one you may not like, but then it's group. If you don't get into the group, I can't give you this group. So the part of the churn that I'm talking about, we have to do a lot at a government level, at a private level, uh, at a parental level. We have to do quite a lot. The planners do it for the entire country, which is diverse linguistically, culturally, socially, and more importantly, economically. We have to understand that. Uh, the new policy, we all of us have read the draft. It has some, it makes some far-reaching recommendations. I particularly like this 4-year course, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, gathered into one 8 semester, 40. I mean, 40, I mean, 8 semester course with 40 examinations, each subject done at a various level. It's very, very interesting. Hopefully, if it is implemented and if the private schools take the initiative and do well, we will get out of this uh, overemphasis on material sciences and mathematics, which I said are important, but we are overdoing it, and and we are putting aside a few excellent subjects which everybody should know. I mean, uh, we should be talking more about biology. We should definitely be talking more about geography. This is one subject that's done very badly. I'm not talking about it as an academic. For happy, intelligent living, to understand the world that we live in, a good program of geography is important. And there is so much of science in geography. There's so much of, when you go into petrology, rock sciences, geology, anthropology, various other things related to demographic studies, there is a lot of science, a lot of math. So all the logical skills and analytical skills that you want to pass on through study of maths and science, you can pass on through the various applications that you require to do a good study of geography. So you don't lose anything. People who want to specialize in certain finer aspects of physics, chemistry, biology, like physics, chemistry, maths, can always do it at their leisure based on that interest. And there are wonderful institutions that this country has. We've renamed this subject as social sciences, but we continue not to treat it like a science. We should. Uh, all this, I think, sometimes is because we have done this backward integration and reverse engineering bit too much. When you talk to somebody saying, "Look, why are you doing this bunch of subjects?" They talk about how the engineering entrance, medical entrance, or CA entrance, or law college entrance expects this. But you should develop a system by which we start questioning that. I still do not understand why the Medical Council of India wants physics to be a compulsory subject in grade 12. One of you, please tell me why. Uh, Biology, yes. Chemistry, yes. Chemistry is very important for a good study of medicine. Very, very important. Physics, certain aspects of physics, yes. But you know how plus two, what a load is plus two physics. Why should physics be compulsory for a study? So you go talk to the Medical Council of India, ask them to change rules. Don't change your system to suit a bad decision that somebody has done upper and try to do backward integration or reverse engineering. These are the things that I'm talking about. A lot of private schools do well with fine and performing arts. We are definitely doing much better than most of the government and government aided schools because we have the resources, we have the human resources, we have the place, we can spend on it. But we are not integrating them, which is a big issue. Uh, this is where perhaps IB has scored a point over us, has stolen a march. Luckily, there are a few agencies that are coming in. I mean, there are few private entrepreneurs who are trying to introduce new things. But schools should be integrating fine arts, performing arts, physical education. Uh, uh, we stopped calling them co and extracurricular activities long ago. Some schools continue to do that. They're they're actually core curriculum. In fact, I know someone sitting at Chennai. There's one famous uh, young piano player called Anil Srinivasan who started a company called Rhapsody, where grades 1 to 8 they teach various concepts of maths, grammar, uh, geography, history through music. So you catch a tune, you sing a song, understand about the planetary system, you do a song, which kids enjoy songs. and learn about photosynthesis. So you simultaneously understand what is photosynthesis, how do plants grow, and also learn a song. And all of us know, as experienced teachers, that nothing catches like music. The basic idea of all this is the brain is a very complex organization, and uh, this it does not work compartmentally as many earlier researchers have shown. They have been disproved now. So our job at the basic schooling level is to activate as many neurons as possible in the brain. And that can be done only when you have more and more of multidisciplinary approach into your system, which sometimes the board advocates, but the schools do not. So as practitioners of good education, we have to do that. And that can only happen if you have more teachers who are all-rounders. That's my next churn that we're talking about. Let teachers stop becoming specialists till a particular age. Let's start a movement where we'll say, I will only take teachers who can do at least two things: dancing and mathematics, singing and history, economics and Hindi. Nothing. Uh, Somebody has asked me to name the institute. It is Rhapsody, Rhapsody, Rhapsody. You Google for it. Or towards the end, I'll just type those names. So multidisciplinary approach, we don't have to talk about. I mean, we have talked enough about it. We'll move. Uh, One more thing where the churn that I'm talking about should happen is when we were young. At least those of us who are 50 plus would know that when we were young, we had excellent inspection system. I mean, it had few drawbacks, but inspection worked in government and government aided school. Incidentally, I am a product of government and government aided schooling and college system throughout my life. And I have worked only in private schools. That's different. Okay, so I have experienced both. Now coming back to this, there was a healthy inspection system with a very answerable atmosphere. We have grown too big now. We don't have a good inspection system anymore, and we know that government cannot do it anymore. Can private schools do it? It's a big question. Unfortunately, private schools have gone in for this ranking. I understand the economics, and I should rather jocularly say I understand the commerce of this ranking business. But I have serious questions about it in a country where you have tens of lakhs of schools and 22 crore students. You can't make ranking by interviewing about 20,000 people. So, what is the answer for a good inspection system? Because anything needs supervision and inspection so that the quality improves. UK has Ofsted. It is withstand. There are criticism, but it's quite a healthy system. But they have the resources for it. As private schools, I strongly recommend that you set up your own independent inspection system within the school. I experimented with one sometime in 94 or 95. It's I called it self-renewal process. I decided that I know what I want. I'll make some of my senior teachers intensely observe ourselves, but objectively. Let them criticize. In fact, what we did in that school in 94 or 95 is now part of an IAMA study. I called it total self-renewal of schools. So there should be a strong introspection, and don't wait for outsiders to do it. Do it yourself. Uh, Ranking, I take it with a bag of salt, not just a pinch of salt. Promote talent. I mean, we have 12 minutes to go. I think I said 15 minutes. I'll give a questioning. I'll have to cut it down to 10 minutes. I have some 20 more points to go. I think I'll cut short here. I'll just stop with one piece of advice for teachers who are here and principals who are here. I'll bulletize, I'll not even elaborate. Uh, Indian teachers fail to fail to put back money on on improving themselves. I have found a lot of Europeans after first 3 or 4 or 5 years they save money and pay for their own studies, keep upgrading themselves. And most teachers have a reasonably good library at home. I think Indian teachers should start building a good library at home and read things not just on their subject, on quite a few other things. A good home library differentiates a teacher from the others. As for principals, I became a principal very early in life, but I've always treated myself and other principals as primus inter pares. You are first among equals. In your own campus, there must be a lot of people who are just as smart, as efficient, as intelligent, if not more than you. Respect them, promote them, nurture talent. Uh, you are there either because somebody spotted you earlier than they did the others, or because you're plain lucky. But perhaps you got a chance because your leadership skills, which were much more evident and apparent than the rest. So promote talent. The country needs a lot more principals, precisely because there are no principal training institutions in this country. You learn on the job. Somebody gives you a job, you pick up those bits and pieces that make you a good leader. I haven't come across any good principal training course in this country yet. I'll stop there and take questions. You can type your questions on the chat box. We have 10 minutes. Questions either on what we've spoken. Like I said, I have a lot more to speak, but I know that I have to give time for. Okay, I have about 10 more points. If I don't get any interesting questions, I'll go about talking about some of those issues. Okay, while waiting for some interesting questions, I will go to one more issue that I want to talk about. One more churn that I'm talking about, that I would like to raise issue here is non-standardization of the education sector. All countries have this government aided and purely uh, private driven schools, but nowhere else is there such stark difference. If I take UK or US for example, uh, some of the amenities may be different, certain offerings may be different, the payback may be different, but if I take, let's say, for example, 400 common elements that should constitute a school, there will be at least 40 to 50% of those elements that will be common among aided government and private schools, independent schools. In India, less than except the examination and the hours of work, there's nothing that is standard. So when you have millions who come out of the schooling system, the market outside is flummoxed. They don't know what to do. Uh, there's a non-standardized approach to schooling in India. I know that differences will continue to exist between government and government-aided schools as one unit vis-a-vis the private sector. But this total lack of non-standardization of operating procedures is not healthy for a country. I mean, the divide becomes wider. This is a major problem. Some of it, I think, stems from non-standard budgeting policies. We should have some standard budgeting about which what pie goes to where, what percentage of the expense goes to human resources, to training, etc., etc. I have question from Samik Ghosh, my good friend Samik Ghosh. Uh, what would be your approach to broach the issue you have spoken about with parents? I presume Samik is talking about poor parenting skills, uh, assuming that it is poor parenting skills. The country, you have a lot of these lecturers now who come and talk to you about poor parenting. And there are now specialists who uh, talk to parents about how to be a better parent, etc. My humble opinion is that principals and senior teachers are the best people to talk to parents about parenting skills. We know what attributes, what qualities children should develop. We are on a 5 to 6 hour personal contact with them on a day-to-day basis, and we do know what impact the parents have on the children on a day-to-day basis. We should be able to collect our thoughts, put them together, have sessions with them mm, in an atmosphere of openness. Uh, Unfortunately, thanks to press, thanks largely to the media that we have, uh, s- schools are seen as establishments, just as there is this general tendency to treat government as an establishment and go on an anti-establishment uh, mode. There is a tendency to look at schools as establishments, which we are not. We are part of a part of a noble mission of educating the society. Of course, there is economics involved, just as government also has there's an element of economics involved in running the government. It collects taxes and gives welfare. I collect fee and do what I have to do. So, in an atmosphere of openness, I think we should be able to tell parents, give some instances, make it very transactional, jot down those instances. For example, one major thing is in our days, parents never discussed school or teachers in the presence of children. It's happening increasingly, and a kid who has heard criticism of his teacher from the parents is not going to respect the teacher. I know I may sound old-fashioned, but a kid who does not respect the teacher is not going to learn from him. Is that fine, Samik? While waiting for the next question, I think I still have 2 or 3 minutes, so I'll try to get into something which. Okay. Samik says, thank you for taking questions. Also, approach to education such as mother tongue, selective sciences, integration are important, but people find it radical. I do understand. Um, I decided, I thought I'll use the Calorex platform to make some radical suggestions, throw some very, very um, strange opinions on the thing. Let's see whether we start an interesting process of exchange of information. These are quite radical, but it has to be done. Otherwise, we keep tinkering with these policies, make those minimalist 1%, 2% chances, and we are back to it's like our lockdown. We do 2 days of very strict compliance. Third day we gather in millions, pass on diseases to each other, and things like that. So I think we should make bite the bullet and make some radical changes. I do understand that some of these are like one quick point before I get the next question. We have 2 minutes. There are hundreds of supplementary companies that come and try to give their products to you: robotics, language learning, singing, dancing, various things, mostly to do with IT. And I'm sure most of you find some part of it fine, some part of it not fine. uh, I have always found this quite annoying. We do have a lot of companies, I call them supplementary education companies, which come and try to peddle their products. Some of them are good, admittedly, but the issue is very often that doesn't fit into my demand. So, like I suggested, we should tell the universities, we should not be dictated by the universities on what I supply. Schooling, I'll say this is ideal schooling, and I'm giving you a good output. You manage. Similarly, we should be able to tell the supplementary education guys, look, this is my need, this is my demand. You go and develop a product or service which fits into this, not the other way around. You prepare something sitting in some fancy place and want me to use it? No. You do what I want. There are a set of skills that I don't have. You develop them and give it to me as a product. I think it's six, and I think I should stop here. Thank you for happy listening. I will give you my uh, email ID here. If there are questions, you can mail them to me. I'll also print my phone number here. You can give me a call in case there are questions that you could not ask. I mean, uh, my email ID is nandushyam@hotmail.com, and my number is 9600034645. Uh, I have printed them using the ID Kalorex group. Uh, welcome. I welcome questions. You can give me a call, message me and call me, or mail your questions. Uh, thank you for listening. Thank you so much. Hopefully, we should meet in person sometime. Thank you.